Hello and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten, and with me tonight from Canis Hoopus is Andrew Carlson. Andrew, how you doing?
Doing great, man. 2 words, no bench, maybe tonight would be a good way to suffice the performance we saw. I'm doing well. We'll kind of see how things shake out here over the next few games for the Wolves, but doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I think first time you're back on since the playoffs, since the Oklahoma City series, unless I'm missing something. Good to have you back, but like you said, no defense, no bench, no rebounding. It was a fun first half, and then the second half they gave up 83 second half points. Kind of felt like more of the same. It feel like we've seen that game pretty much all season. It's either either they play a crap team and win, or they play either a good team or a half decent team, depending on what you think of the Lakers without their guys, or Portland. But they play a half decent team and they lose by a wide margin, really. But yeah, overall thoughts, kind of before we jump into specific topics on the Wolves. 114 loss to the Knicks.
Yeah, just awful. I think initial thoughts, this will probably kind of segue into what we're talking about first. I think, especially given Chris Finch's history with this team and this team's history under Chris Finch early on in the season, you never want to panic. You never want to hit the panic button. You never want to say the house is on fire. That's not what you do. And typically in the spring, things kind of come around and they all end up gelling and it all ends up working out. I do think at this point in the season, you do hit the panic button on those non-Rudy minutes and those bench minutes. There is very alarming trends here. Not only because they're not playing well, but a major source of that in Naz Reid is someone who has, and granted, I don't want to bash on Naz Reid. He's been through a lot, and it's not fair to say that he may not be in a great headspace right now, and that's fair.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, he was signed to $100 million in the offseason, and he needs to be a key piece to this team moving forward this season. He cannot be inconsistent anymore. This is not a roster that is built for him to be inconsistent. And in these non-Rudy minutes, there are legitimate panicky trends that we are seeing right now, where it does look like a very good team with the starting five. They do look very good. They're moving the ball. They are rebounding. The first quarter was awesome. But this bench unit is leaving that starting unit and those starting players in a very precarious spot and giving them no margin of error when they come back into the game. So those are my initial takeaways, and that's kind of my biggest takeaway from tonight specifically. There were a couple storylines for me heading into tonight, like the continuity thing. I think one of the things that was heading in tonight is, like, last year it was a brand new team when they played the Knicks at the Target Center. It went poorly. There were very much so signs that this was a new team. There was not a lot of trust on the floor. Players were playing roles that they weren't comfortable in, and they lost, I think, by 30. If it wasn't by 30, it should have been 30. And maybe they got a couple points back in garbage time. I don't think that there's any doubt at all that this team has much more continuity. They know where each other is on the floor. That's not my problem right now. Like, I definitely think they are a team and there's no real issues there. My issue is that this bench unit is not performing to the level that it should for the players that they have and the caliber of players that they have coming off of the bench.
Yeah, it's you mentioned the giant red flag right now is the non-Rudy minutes defensively. And it's one thing where, like, you mentioned not hitting the panic button, which I tend to agree. I would still kind of, a lot of the preseason predictions or whatever people had, I would still think those are fairly in line for this team, just because, like, the non-Rudy minutes have been so bad that it can't possibly get worse. And I just think even if they're, like, it'll get slightly better and they'll start to win games. Like, I'm not worried about that, but the fact that they are so far below, like, the non-Rudy minutes are by far last, that even if you get it up to, I don't even know, like 20th, which seems like, at this point, seems like a high bar. Like, how are you gonna put together a top 10 defense, which to me is the bare minimum, for this type of team. Any team with, if you can't put together a top 10 defense when you have Rudy Gobert on your team, it's kind of like, what are you doing? But if the non-Rudy minutes are going to be this bad, it's going to be hard to get into the top 10 offense. And if you can't, or defense, excuse me, and if you're not a top 10 defense on the season, it's really hard to see how they're going to win 4 playoff series, nonetheless, like 1 or 2. Like you watch, I mean, Oklahoma City is just a wagon. Denver, we already saw the defensive effort against.
Yeah, this team isn't stopping Denver right now.
Yeah, and in that game they didn't have Ant and Clark, so even if they were playing like that they were already kind of playing behind an 8-ball defensively, but it has not been nearly good enough. And there's 2 aspects of it to me. One is the non-Rudy minutes, which we'll talk about, like Nas and Julius being the defensive anchors of that lineup, supposedly. But even when Rudy's out there, I don't think they're doing well enough defensively there either. And like you mentioned, their defensive personnel is good enough. So I do think there's just a level of, I don't want to say give a shit, but like attention to detail, making the right play, like all that stuff. They just need to do way better. And it's on, I think calling out any one specific player isn't right. Julius Randle's playing amazing on offense, but I think defensively he could play better as well. I don't think Jaden's been like the all NBA level defender that he could be. Ant has only played like 3 games, but I don't think his defense has been great. Donte off ball has been great, but playing on ball defense, I don't think maybe that's too much to expect. And then from Rudy, I thought he was especially poor tonight, and it's just it's a constant thing with him, and to call him out for the defense would be he's the only one that's able to sustain them. So but just watching, like, he just got torched by Mitchell Robinson on the glass. Mitchell Robinson had 9 offensive rebounds. The Knicks had 24 total offensive rebounds. That's the same number of Wolves defensive rebounds. So basically half of the Knicks missed shots they were able to grab. Led to a 17-point Knick advantage on second chance points. They had 62 points in the paint. Now, I'm sure a lot of those were with Rudy off the court, but like all of that just points to just not good enough. And the Rudy roller coaster, which it's watching this season, I would say you can't trade Rudy. Then your whole defense will tank. So but also it's like when he just needs to play better too. He needs to rebound better. He needs to defend better. It's kind of a rock and a hard place, which kind of describes everything with the Rudy Gobert experience.
Yeah, I think Dane actually had this one on Twitter where I think at this point now the Wolves D rating with Rudy off the floor is at 147, and with him on the floor it's 107. It's hard, right? Because I think Mitchell Robinson did a lot of his damage in the third quarter in those non-Rudy minutes, right? I mean, the Wolves had zero answer for him between Randle and Nas. And part of that, too, is because they, I can see the philosophy behind it, but when that lineup is on the floor, they're switching. And that is getting them into a lot of tough situations, especially with Jalen Brunson, who's just going to punish whoever you switch on to him. I mean, they were running a high screen. He was getting a switch of either, like, they tried to run a little zone there too, but he was either getting like a Mike Conley on him or Nas, and he was just making them pay. And even if they forced that first miss, Mitchell Robinson was right there, and Nas Reed and or Julius Randle is just no match for him, especially at the level they were playing on the glass tonight. So they're just able to get them in very tough situations. And I'm trying to rack my brain with this too. Like, I don't think it's a matter of missing Nickeil as much, because I think part of Jalen Clark's impact right now, like the reason he is needed so badly by this team, is because yes, he's physical on defense. That's great. He picks up 94 feet. But for a guard, his rebounding instincts are really, really good. Like, he's good on the offensive glass. He does help end possessions. And I go back to what Chris Finch has said for a long time, is like, this team is really good at forcing the first miss, but they're not, you can only force so many misses against an NBA team if they're getting second, third, fourth chances. my thing about this second unit right now is I don't even think they're doing a great job getting the first miss. I just think they're getting caught out of position far too much, whether it's miscommunications at the top of the key. I'm seeing Nas read. I mean, again, I'm gonna bag on Nas a little bit here because he is a source of a lot of these issues. Like I think with Nas, he is supposed to be an advantage player at the 4, at the 5, and he is supposed to be so efficient offensively that it makes up for his defense and his lack of rebounding. But right now he's not doing that, and so right now he's caught out of position a lot at the top of the key, and guards like Jalen Brunson, like an Austin Reeves, they're able to punish him there and get him caught in tough situations. And so whether it's miscommunications of going under over screens, bad switches, whatever it might be, I mean, it's just not working with that unit right now, and it needs to get fixed. I mean, I know what the answer is? No, I don't have all of the answers. You're not going to play Berenger. I saw some calls on Twitter for people to say put Berenger in there because any minutes for him are going to come at the cost of Nas, and you're paying him $100 million. You just can't do that right now. So there's a lot of issues just positionally defensively, and I think if that's something that they're able to get ironed out, they might be able to force that first miss a little bit more. But even after they force that first miss, there just has to be a willingness to rebound the basketball, guards, bigs, whoever it might be, because this stuff is going to be on scouting reports now. The book is out on the Timberwolves. I mean, even if it's not that, when that first unit is not on the floor, when Rudy Gobert clocks out, when he's not playing those 30 minutes that he's going to inevitably be playing every night now, crash the glass. Put 3 guys on the glass every single time. Put your wings there. Put your bigs there. Go grab the ball, because this team has no willingness to do so. There's a lot of ball watching happening right now.
Yeah, and I kind of go back to last year where they had the same issue at the beginning of last year. The defense and all the non-Rudy minutes were terrible last year. And from a regular season standpoint, I do think they eventually were able to get it figured out, get it papered over. And they finished with the 6th best defense, even in a defensive year where it still felt like they could have done better. So I do think from a regular season standpoint, I do think they could do that again. I think they can find some stuff, find lineups, just get Nas playing better. I think they can paper over it, and they will eventually start winning games. My big worry, and maybe this is in the beginning of November is too soon, is they never got it figured out from a playoff sense. The non-Rudy minutes continued to be an issue defensively in the playoffs.
And the Rudy minutes were a problem offensively.
Yeah. And so at a certain point, it just feels like that is like a franchise-altering something that they need to do. And it probably, I don't think what we've seen, the problem, here's my big problem too, is Nas is a power forward, and with Julius Randle playing this well, there isn't a path to bring Nas into the starting lineup. There just isn't. There's never going to be there. So
put him at 3 and bring Jaden off the bench, and that's never going to happen.
And as much as it pains me to say this, given the name of this podcast, 2 words, it seems like, I don't know, whatever successful version of this team, I'm not sure, and this is too early to has Nas on it, just because you already have seems like an all-star power forward on the team, and Nas is not a center. He's just not. And I think we would have liked to believe coming into the year that, okay, he can be a backup center, and then with him and not Randle on the court, that's good enough. He can play spot minutes defensively, and it just feels less and less. With Cat, even Cat, obviously the reason they traded for Gobert is he was not a good enough defensive center. But when it was 12 minutes or against the other 2 leagues worst, the bench, it was fine. I don't think they had these gigantic holes in the non-Rudy minutes. But with Nas kind of playing that role now, they do. And I don't see how it gets fixed, because like I said, I think the fan knee-jerk reaction would be to trade Gobert. But you need to get some other rim-protecting player back in here. And
Correct.
The players that are good at that and not liabilities defensively cost a lot. And so I don't know. I don't know how you go about acquiring that type of player, because honestly, there's not very many. There's not very many, and it feels like it's almost a requirement to win at the highest level is to have. I mean, look at the last three champions are OKC. That Chet is that type of player. Certainly, Boston with Kristaps, and even him, they didn't play him very much, and Al Horford probably kind of fits that role at least back then. And then Denver, and Jokic is just a monster. So, it's the biggest thing to me. I would have said coming into the year, my biggest worry is just like, do the Wolves have like the second all-star caliber player around Ant, like the second best player on a title team? And maybe that's still there, but Randle's played well enough to at least like calm that down, I would feel. But now my biggest thing is just like, what are they doing? It's because the other one is like point guard minutes. I have not had an issue with the point guard minutes of the past few games, but it's like the center position right now is just, it's really tough for the Wolves.
Yeah, I think the guard position has been fine, and we'll talk about Rob a little bit later. And even too, like to your championship point, when the Warriors won a few years ago against the Celtics, the reason they did is because they were able to go double big, and Kevon Looney had a really nice series. And so that it's important, and there's no question about it. I'll elaborate a little bit on the point that I said a little bit earlier about Nas is, I've always loved Nas's game and what he can bring when he is on. The problem with him for so long, and why I have been against the idea that much of Wolves Twitter has brought forth of him being a starter, is he's just not consistent enough. And this is not just a this year thing. This is a player who has struggled against athletic bigs in the past. I mean, an extreme example would be like an Evan Mobley when they played Cleveland. He was stifled last year. When they played teams like, he used to kill Golden State, but he struggled against Golden State too. Like when he plays these teams that have long, rangy, athletic players, and then tonight was a Mitchell Robinson, and even like they probably would have done okay if they put Mikal Bridges on him for a lot of the night too. Like he's struggled against these players, and where he can't really take them down low, he can't really do much in the post on them, and then they're also rangy enough to get out on the perimeter and kind of get up in his face and bother him a little bit to where he can't get his quick release off. I think he was 2 for 7 tonight, 1 for 5 from 3. So that's the thing with Nas, is if he was consistent and if he was hyper efficient on offense, like we've seen him do so many times, if he was able to do that consistently, this lineup works. This backup unit works. We've seen it against Oklahoma City in the regular season last year when they came from behind and won, and Terrence Shannon had that great game. Like we've seen this work time and time again. He's saved their asses so many times in games where he's done that hyper efficient thing. But even just a stitch of consistency, like, let's see on an off night, like 12 points on 4 of 11 shooting. You know what I mean? Like you just can't have these types of nights where you are an offensive tweener. Your thing is to either take people out to the perimeter or punish small guys down low, take big guys out to the perimeter or punish small guys down low, and you get completely stifled. Like you and Julius are supposed to be a small front court nightmare for those types of teams. And when you're not able to do that, you get a night like tonight where you leave zero margin for error for your starting lineup, and your best player is coming back from a hamstring injury.
Yeah, it's tough, and I continue the point guard issue has kind of gone away, and it's something that I felt early on that when they were turning it over against Portland and Indiana, and I kind of felt like this has more to do with Portland and Indiana than it does the Wolves. I kind of felt like it's not to say that having a lack of point guard isn't like one of a small issue for the Wolves. It probably is, but we've seen it lately. I don't think that that's like some big red flag issue like this, like the defense is, especially because I just think, I know they list Donte as the point guard on the starting unit. People get too hung up on. I think what's become clear is like Ant's the point guard, and with Mike on the bench, I thought Mike's been playing fine, if not good,
Mike's
of
been
late.
perfectly fine.
Mike playing 18 minutes a night as the bench point guard, and if the game works out where they need Mike to close, I think like I'm not really worried about the point guard rotation, honestly, especially once Ant kind of comes back from this injury. But I mean, I already mentioned it. I just don't see. I think they'll get this figured out from a regular season standpoint, and I still believe they'll win 50 games. That would be my point, and I think if they get out of the play-in and they're I mean, even if they're, I would probably rather be the 6th seed than the 4 or 5 seed, just because, OKC is more likely to win. Maybe that's a hot take. OKC is more likely to win 73 games than they are to be the 2 seed.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep. And they're not as good as, they're a better regular season team than they are a playoff team. That says more about who they are, and they're still a great playoff team because obviously they just won the title, but. I just don't see how the center position is going to work out. And my biggest point with Nas, and obviously I think it's a bit of a downswing. Like if this downswing for Nas happened in the middle of the season, I don't think it'd get noticed as much, but because it's the first 8 games, it's not to excuse it, because that's what I would say. And what you said about Nas and his sister, we've said it on this podcast too, is absolutely true. And I think fairly or unfairly, if he's going to be out there as well, and he's not playing well, I think people are going to criticize it. Well, keeping in mind, maybe there's a reason for the struggles, but I think a lot of it is he's just playing out of position. He's a power forward. If Randle had to play 30 minutes at center, I think we would say, well, he's getting played out of position. I think that's true for Nas. The problem is that this is what they need from him. They have 38-minute power forward minutes from Julius Randle. So I guess there's 10 left for Nas, but you can't play Nas 10 minutes a game.
Exactly. So anything that comes in for a center in the second unit cuts out of Nas's minutes. And there's 2 areas here where I think the criticisms are valid. One, his contract, obviously. We've talked about that a little bit. $100 million contract. And 2, Nas has been vocal. Like, he has said this on record to the media. Like, he thinks he's a starting NBA player. Like, he thinks that he could have gone somewhere else to get starting minutes, like to play like 30 minutes a night.
He's not wrong.
He could have, sure, but he's not. Like, that's the other prong of this criticism, is he's not playing like a starting player that's off the bench. He's not looking like a 6th man of the year, and that's what the Wolves so desperately need. So I think there's 2 pieces there to this that I think are very well warranted. And when again, I'll beat the drum like this, when you lack consistently like this is going to come, and I will be the first person to roll out the red carpet when we do see, like, on an off night for Nas, that it is like 12 points, 4 of 10 from the field, or 3 of 10 from the field, or something like that, or like an Ant stat line where it's like 5 of 15 or 5 of 18, where he still drops 20 points. Like, that's the type of caliber of player that he has to turn into, where the off nights just don't look like as big of off nights, and he completely blends in with like New York second unit players who are on minimum contracts.
Yeah, I do think that if you started him, even in this, if he started for Julius, I think he'd be a much more valuable player than he is now. Like the Nas Rudy minutes are awesome. It's a bit similar to the Cat and Rudy minutes that they eventually got figured out. Like, that's a great pairing, but Randle's clearly not going to give up that spot, and so they need to find a way to get him effective. And I'll just say it one more time, I think they will get there. I think Nas will rebound from this and have a solid enough season, but it's just hard to see from a playoff perspective, and not even like a first round play. Like, Nas wasn't an issue against the Rudy stuff wasn't an issue against the Lakers. Like, they were able to beat the injured Warriors, but it's like when you come against the Thunder, or likely to make a finals, you're going to have to beat the Thunder and the Nuggets, likely. And if you're not going to have to beat one of those 2 teams, it's going to it's just going to be a better team theoretically. So, yeah, let's move on to the next. We'll stick with the negative before we start talking about the good aspects of this game, which I do believe there were a lot. I thought they played very well in the first half. But Anthony Edwards returns from his hamstring injury. I know there was a lot of kind of chatter online or worry, just classic Minnesota worry about him coming back too soon. I don't, even through a poor game, I don't think that was the case tonight. He didn't play well, but I didn't think physically I thought he looked just fine. And it's just like, I say this a lot, like you have to assume that these people know what they're doing, at least to a baseline level. And that your worry that they're going to roll out Ant too early and him re-injure this thing, they are just as worried about, if not more than you are. They know when he's ready. He had an injury that is, the timetable is 7 to 10 days, and he came back in 10 days. I don't think, like, it's not a big story. And the big thing is, like, follow local reporting, not Shams. The only reason you had the expectation for 2 weeks is because Shams posted 2 weeks. It wasn't even local reporting. It was the Wolves' own PR statement where they said reevaluated 1 week. And he was reevaluated 1 week and came back a few days after that reevaluation point. Could it have been 2 weeks? For sure. If they had gotten a slightly more negative reevaluation, maybe it would have been out a couple days. Some of that, the media literacy kind of part of it kind of tends to annoy me, just because even despite coming back exactly on his timetable, there's still chatter that they rush him back. But with that aside, I thought he played very poorly tonight. Just was not aggressive enough. I would have to go back and watch and see if he was a big problem defensively. I would assume he was, given that he was the team worst, minus 25. I'm not saying they shouldn't have played him. I didn't think he was nearly effective enough. Was not nearly aggressive enough. He shared the ball well. That was probably a good. I don't think it wasn't a situation of where he was jacking up terrible shots. To be honest, some of the crappy shots he did throw up there went in, which is then they're probably not crappy shots. But I just didn't think he was aggressive enough defensively. Offensively, didn't look to find his shot. But ultimately wasn't the reason the ball stuck. If it stuck, I didn't think.
Well, I mean, I think that ironically, the game was actually pretty indicative of how he played. No, I completely agree with you on how he came back. I do think the Wolves have a pretty impeccable record at this point over the last few years of managing injuries and bringing players back at the right time, and doing a nice job of getting players back. Like, look at how they managed Julius last year with that groin injury. He came back, had no real issues when he came back. Donte with his turf toe, like, obviously he showed some signs in the playoffs that he was still kind of hurting a little bit, but he wasn't going to re-injure it, and he was completely fine. He was playing with a plate in his shoe. They've have a great track record of managing these things. So I just don't understand the hysteria behind it. As far as Ant ended up playing tonight, I'm going to disagree with you on the first part. I think he actually came out of the gate really well. Because he needed to get into a rhythm. I think he tried to get that rhythm from everybody else on the floor and put some energy into the ball. There was that possession in the first quarter that all 5 players touched the ball. I think a couple players in the lineup touched it a couple times. Like, that is the possession. Like, that is a quintessential possession that Chris Finch probably had a smile on his face after, because that's what this starting lineup needs to do. Everyone's a capable scorer. Everyone is capable of shooting 40% from 3 in that lineup. So that's how a lot of possessions should look. And he came out early looking to get off of the ball, get the ball to Julius, let Julius set the tone, actually. And when Julius was getting shadow doubled halfway through that first quarter, like, that was kind of one of the things that helped spur ball movement. And so I liked the way that Ant came out initially. But yeah, I mean, he had a rough defensive game, and I do think the problems started coming in the second half. I think specifically the third quarter is kind of where I look at when, I mean, it went wrong for the whole team, but for him specifically, like, there was a play that Finch drew up out of a timeout, and actually Jim Pete highlighted on the broadcast. But Donte came off of a pin down at the top of the key, hit the 3 ball. It was a really nice play. It kind of got the Wolves back into rhythm. I think they were down a couple points. And then Ant came down on the very next possession, and I think it was a 0-pass possession. And he did one of his, like, step back shots off the rim, just trying to force himself into rhythm at that point. Like, I just don't think he was patient enough. And that's kind of where things started to become unraveled because Finch has talked about it before, like they kind of let the defense get impacted by the offense there. And then from Ant starting to play a little bit of dribble, shoot, then Julius started to do the same thing. And then Donte was kind of doing a little bit of his like floater game type thing in the paint that started not working. And what we saw in the first quarter then became just completely lost. And so even though Ant did not have the best game, agreed, thought he came out well. And ironically, like he kind of set the tone for the whole game, both good and bad in that first and second half. And that's just going to need to get better here moving forward. And it will. I mean, it's his first game back, and I know Jim talked about it on the broadcast too. Like it takes time for him to catch a rhythm again, especially for a player who just falls into rhythm and I guess for lack of a better phrase too, like out of rhythm as well, like falls in and out of rhythm so often. He is a rhythm player. Like he needs to find that again. And so that's what he was trying to do tonight. He just tried to force it too much in the second half. And like you said, was minus 23.
Yep, 25.
25. I mean, it's just not surprising at all. So, I mean, it's Friday against Utah. You'd hope he can kind of come out a little bit stronger, maybe be a little bit more aggressive now that he's going to be practicing and doing full basketball activities. I did see too, second half, he was a minus 19 alone. So, I mean, it was not great all around. He shot 37%, put 8 shots up. So that's kind of just where things kind of came a little bit unraveled. And I actually don't believe he had, I think he had 3 assists. So yeah, not a great night for him overall in the second half.
Yeah. And it's just one game coming back from injury, but ultimately, like, he got outplayed thoroughly by Jalen Brunson. And that's like his counterpoint out there. I thought both of them kind of got slowed down in the first half, at least from a scoring punch perspective. And then Brunson kind of woke up in the second half, ranked, and the excuse or the explanation is fine that it's coming back from injury. But just like that's what happened. It kind of makes me think of these teams are fairly similar in terms of like where their talent is associated and like the types of players. And it just felt like if you were to connect dots of like who's the version of the like Mitchell Robinson thoroughly outplayed Gobert despite he only nine Mitchell Robinson only played 16 minutes and got 9 offensive rebounds. If he was playing 30, who knows? But like Mitchell Robinson 30 outplayed Gobert. OG was better than Jaden. Mikhail and Donte, I guess, were probably, I don't know. I would have to go back and watch defensive possessions, but like those are 2 big ones right there. Those 2 areas got outplayed, and maybe Julius outplayed Cat, but like Nas was, I don't know, all the similar players got outplayed. I will note the 4 or 5 from Josh Hart and from 3 is annoying. That's the Wolves have. The Wolves have gotten the shooting variance. They've done well with the shooting variance 7 games in. So I'm not calling that out really, but that's just a classic. Like if this game were close and they lost by like 6 points or something, that'd totally be like one of those where it's just like, okay, what are you gonna do? And throw in Yabusele's 1 of 2 in there, and it's just like, okay, well, what are we doing here? But I guess you can do that all day. Cat was 1 of 5. You'd expect him to go 2 of 5, but. Yeah, just not good enough from Ant, but the 2 games he did play in fully, he was awesome in both of those games. So willing to let it go, I would say. But the defense would probably bother me more. That was a big training camp storyline of these guys are going to come out and play different defensively. And obviously we've talked about the schematic stuff, but it's just like I don't think like that has not translated to the regular season, and that's probably been the most frustrating part, where it almost feels like we're not even figuring out what the issues are because guys aren't executing well enough. And so basically every time they've played a half decent team, they've gotten torched defensively. And even some of the games against Indiana has scored 110 against them, and they are by like the worst offense in basketball so far. Like, obviously that's due to injuries, but like that's a worrying sign. So I guess they got Utah, Sacramento is their next 4 games. So if you can't play good defense against those, heading into another back-to-back Target Center back-to-back with Denver, that'll continue to be an issue. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's also notable too. In all of the rebounding woes that we talked about, that Ant and Mike were the only 2 players on the team that didn't get a rebound tonight. I mean, you can throw Rob into that mix too, but Rob played kind of here and there. Like, he wasn't really a consistent member of the rotation tonight. But like, Ant needs to grab at least 5 rebounds. That's just there's just no reason. He's 6'5". He has the highest vertical leap on the team. I mean, Rudy had 6 rebounds tonight. I mean, Rudy led the team with 6 rebounds. So that's
defensive rebounds, you're saying.
Defensive rebounds, sorry. I mean, so that's really kind of all you need to know. I mean, Ant did grab 2 offensive rebounds, but yeah, he and Mike were the only 2 players that didn't grab a single defensive rebound. And in his career, the Wolves are 91-76 when he grabbed 6 or more rebounds. Like, that's not like the greatest winning percentage of all time, but it's a positive winning percentage. There's a correlation there. Like, the Wolves win when their wings show an inclination to rebound the basketball. And
Jaden especially. He only had 4 total rebounds tonight.
Exactly. And so Ant needs to be more active there. Like, another just example tonight, like, you know, talk about him being a little bit more inactive defensively. Like, there's not really a metric that would show that, but if there was one that maybe showed like a little bit more passivity on that side of the ball, like a little more ball watching when the ball goes up, he didn't get a single defensive rebound, and that just cannot happen under any circumstances.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked about the negative plenty. Let's touch on a couple of the positives from this game, and that would be the offense in general. I thought was solid, especially in the first half. I thought it was great. But Julius and Donte have continued to show exactly what you'd want to see from them. I would say the New York Knicks version of Donte at MSG tonight, I think, was there. I talked about his role earlier. I think I'm not the only one to say this, but like, he's just not a point guard. Obviously, you take the ball up the court a couple times, like, that's completely fine. But his role is shooting guard, and Ant and Julius should be the ones picking up the ball handling traditional point guard duties when Mike's on the bench. But Randle's continued. If he continues this, he'll easily make an All-Star game and maybe even be in contention for like a 3rd-team All-NBA slot if enough guys get hurt. But 32 points, 12 of 11 from the field, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I thought he was just awesome. Maybe the ball stuck with him a little bit too much in the second half. And then Donte, same thing, just firing everything away. I did not really have a problem with any of his 3-point attempts. He goes 5 for 11. The 2-point efficiency continues to just be horrendous. He misses a layup. Obviously, I don't think that's necessarily going to... That was pretty bad. There's a swing there where it was like, yeah, he missed a layup, 3-pointer on the end. Someone missed a wide open 3, and then a layup on the other end. It's just like, that's just how basketball goes sometimes. So it's like, that's a 10-point swing right there just on shot making. But I think if they can figure out everything else, the point guard stuff, the defense stuff, I think what we've seen from Julius and Donte has to be encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing with Julius right now is I took a little bit of time just watching him in the first half. And again, thinking of that Knicks game a year ago where nobody really knew each other at that point in time. Like, how far has his game come on this team? When he was here a year ago, it was like, I'm not really going to even give my other teammates a look. Like, it was your turn, my turn with Ant. It was literally them passing back and forth and just seeing who could play iso ball and score. And it was really tough offense to watch. Ant, even in the locker room, said after one of the games, like, other teams know Julius is going to score and other teams know I'm going to score, but like, it's a very repeatable offense and everyone kind of knows what's going to happen. But like, if you look at him tonight, he's just spraying the ball around. Like, he's drawing 2 guys. He's making the right pass. He's going to the basket and finishing. He's drawing contact. He's drawing fouls. Like, he is playing the game the exact right way that you would want to in the lineup that he has when he's being surrounded by shooters and making himself the sun, essentially. and it's really cool to see that evolution, and it's for sure a tribute to Chris Finch and his vision that he had for Julius when they traded for him, and what he knew Julius could be all along. So that's been really, really cool to witness. um, on the other side of that coin, however, my worry is, and there were signs of this in the second half, is what if teams, and I don't like, this is not like a fair comparison, but what if teams do the Jokic thing and they just want to turn Julius into a scorer? Like what if that's their game plan moving forward here? If they just say, hey, we're going to give you a bad matchup, and sure, you can go ahead and score 35 points, but I mean, you're not going to get Donte involved. Like, you're not going to get Jaden involved as much. You're going to turn Jaden into a corner stander. You and Ant are just going to start passing back and forth again. Like, that's kind of where my head goes of like a viable game plan for Julius. But as long as he keeps getting off of the ball in timely fashion, and the Wolves keep running some of those actions for Donte, and um, being able to get Ant downhill, I don't think that's going to be as much of an issue. But that's like where my caution flag goes up, is that's kind of what happened in the second half a little bit tonight. On the Donte front, he's kind of turning into like a Kyle Korver, where it's just like, run around a couple guys and take a shot from the wing, and it's going to go in more often than it doesn't. And yeah, his finishing has been really, really bad, and that needs to improve for sure, because he will get stifled at some point in time by just being a guy who runs around screens and catches the ball. You'll draw gravity that way, no question, but it's just not a sustainable way that you can keep producing on like an every night level. So you're just at some point in time, you're just going to you just have to be able to finish inside the free throw line. But he's been a very welcome surprise, because again, when you look at where things were a year ago versus where they are now, I believe this Wolves team has a better record than they did last year, 8 games in. I could be wrong, but
I think they were. Let me check. I think they were 5-3 last year, but they're swoon. Yes, they were 5-3. They were 6-3 last year before, if you remember that. Just awful loss in against Miami, where they just totally,
that's right,
like, threw that game. I don't remember the late game specific, but it was bad. And then they lose back-to-back games in Portland to drop to 6-6, and they eventually get to 8-10. So 10 through 8 games, the Wolves had a better record last year, but if through 18 games, I'd be shocked if the Wolves were anywhere near 8-10.
Yeah, that Miami game was chicken dance gate. Remember, they played the chicken dance, and then they completely melted down in the last minute after the Chick-fil-A 2 misses.
Yeah.
During the next possession, and then it all crumbled from there for a few games.
They also played the chicken dance up by 50 in game 6 of the Denver series, so I forgive them on that one, I guess, just because that was the coolest thing ever when they were up 60 or 50. Luka Garza hits a shot to go up 50 and the chicken dance is playing. But
it was awesome.
That Miami game was like the beginning of just like some crappy early season play from them.
Yeah, but again, you look at where like some of these individual players were a year ago. Like Donte wasn't in a great place, and he wasn't. I mean, he had I think he had one good early season game against Charlotte, but like outside of that, I mean, he was pretty putrid too. And so, I mean, I talk about the continuity thing, and that was kind of my theme heading into tonight. It's like, this is going to be a good test to see where this continuity has gotten them. And while they didn't end up winning the game, and there are clearly issues on this bench unit that we have exhaustively covered, these players that they acquired a year ago, who are very good, who contributed to winning last year to a Western Conference final team, know their roles now, and they are clearly very comfortable within this offense. And that is my biggest take. That is like my next biggest takeaway from tonight. That is from a glass half full perspective, is Julius looks good. He looks very comfortable. He knows where his teammates are going to be, and he's been an effective distributor. I mean, he can be someone who can initiate offense too, opposite of Ant. Like, there are 2 ball handlers that draw gravity in this offense. And Donte knows exactly where he's going to be on the floor too, and where he produces at his best too. And he's had a really nice start to the season. So those are 2 positives to take away. They know what they're doing. They didn't last year.
Yeah. The biggest downside with the offense tonight was just 17 turnovers, and it felt like the Knicks scored on every single one of them. 29 points off turnovers for the Knicks. I don't know if there's much more to say. Just don't do that. Don't turn it over so much. Some of them were forced by like the Knicks pressure. Other ones just were not, and were mental mistakes that can't happen, or probably just more indicative of just not being as locked in as you need to be. Which you can, for every team, except I guess the Thunder, who are just going to go 82-0. But there's going to be a certain number of games where you just don't quite have it like that, and it unfortunately feels like a lot of those are front loaded on the schedule for the Wolves. But just turnovers were the problem, and it wasn't really every single starter had at least two, and throw Nas in there as your sixth man also had two. So it was a roster wide problem that, again, if the game were closer, it'd probably be a bigger storyline.
Yeah, it's those teeter-totter stat categories, second chance points and points off turnovers, and the Wolves got waxed in both of them. And when that happens, you're going to lose a game in pretty seismic fashion.
Yep, I kind of think about, like, there's three, like, variance categories, which would be those two, and then just, like, shooting variance. I would call the shooting variance. We'll see what I always like to look what Synergy says, but I don't think it'll be some grant, certainly not to make up for the big deficit, but I don't think both teams shot well. And the Knicks won the other two, the turnover battle and the rebounding battle. So lastly, I want to talk about one more kind of low light, and I'm almost might just need to couch this topic for a while, but the Rob Dillingham experience has just kind of continued to not be anywhere close to where it needs to be. And all the caveats apply. He's 20 years old. The minutes haven't been there for him. I don't think he was a disaster tonight at all. I think the defense was what it's been, for better or for worse, obviously usually for worse. And the ball didn't stick, which is the biggest thing. He was a part of when the offense was playing well, passing the ball, making the right read, all that sort of stuff. But there's just been so few standout stretches from him, especially when they need him to score or he tries to score. One possession, just like not even getting good like mid-range looks, even if they're inefficient, has not very got. And then one possession, the ball swings to him, wide open three. Obviously, he's got to shoot it. Every wide open, like, you got to shoot it. And it's one thing you miss, like sample size of one, whatever. I just thought, like, that wasn't close. That wasn't the correct arc. That wasn't like your shot, whatever you're trying to do with your shot pattern there just did not. And like, that's what worries me, is that it's just, feels like there's no confidence there. And again, I'm over harping. I don't think he was even that bad. 4 assists in almost 12 minutes of play. He was like, that was good. I don't think he was even bad tonight. It's just like, I don't think they need him to be successful for this year's team, but from like a asset standpoint, it's just, it's really tough, especially when we talk about the center rotation. It does feel like, and I felt like this before the season, and it certainly hasn't gone anywhere to start the season. It's like this roster needs one more big, huge swing trade. Or maybe just like Jaden continuing to develop and Rob hitting whatever. Like, they just need something. What they're to me, they're clearly like just a half step behind whatever they need to be. And that's I don't even have like some grand like worry about that necessarily, because they've made the Western Finals twice. They're going to be a high quality playoff team again. But you spent a lot to get him, and I don't even care about whatever 8th grader that now it went to San Antonio, now in Sacramento. I don't even care about who that is. Who has Utah gotten for the Rudy? And have they gotten, for the 2 guys they traded away, Utah did, Rudy and Donovan Mitchell. They have not really gotten much for either. Lauri Markkanen is the best thing they've gotten out of everything out of that. And it just, I don't know. It's a big worry for me. Maybe tonight's a bad time to talk about it, because maybe you can disagree with me. I didn't think he was terrible, but I didn't think he was good neither. And I continue to want more from him, and I don't see where you're going to get the minutes from, because even when he plays well, it's still like not a net positive for the Wolves.
No, he hasn't been good, and I think that there was another play. I'm not sure what game it was. Maybe it was the Brooklyn game, where it was Julius running down the floor with the ball, and Rob was with him, and Rob just kind of like listed out of bounds when he should have went and spotted up in the corner. Like basic fast break offense, where you need to you need to be there when you have gravity being drawn to you. And Julius threw out to the corner thinking that Rob was going to be there, and Rob wasn't there, and it was a turnover. Here is my thing with Rob, and here's my take about Rob, that I think it's a little bit more glass half full, but I just think needs to be kept in mind is, and I think I give Finch a lot of props right now for doing the right thing. Young players don't develop by sitting on the bench, right? Like they need trial by fire. They need to be in games. Like Ant at first for an entire 3/4 of a season was putrid. Nas was not very good until the second half of the season for the Wolves when they were really, really bad, and he was coming up from Iowa as an undrafted free agent. Jaden wasn't even in the rotation for half the season as a rookie, and then he got into the rotation. He needed a little bit of time to catch on. Like all of these young players, they just need time, and but also too the leash to fail a little bit. They need to have they need to be able to screw up and like understand what that feels like and like move on from that and be able to correct that. And what Rob is in a tough situation right now because he doesn't really have that. Like he's on a team with expectations and a team that actually needs him to perform well, and he just doesn't really have that luxury of being able to just fail and it go under the radar and everyone's cool with it and we all move on with our lives. And so that's tough. However, what I would say, and what I give Finch props for over the last couple games, is giving him that. Like, he got 2 solid shifts tonight. He got some time in the Brooklyn game. Like, he is kind of peeking his way into the rotation a little bit more. And it may not look good here for a couple months, but you need to give this to him. Like, you can't just yank him when he's not playing well. That's going to crush a 19-year-old's confidence. And it does not matter if you were a 5-star recruit, if you were overtime elite. Like, there's still, like, you're a human being at the end of the day. If you're getting yanked from the rotation and like just because you're messing up a few games and like you're not playing super well at the time and like you're early in your career, like that's going to crush you. Like that has career implications on you and how you play. And I just think Rob needs to get a half season of leash. It doesn't matter how he plays. I just think you need to get him in the rotation, give him all of the confidence in the world to go be him and do what he needs to do within the confines of the offense, and just see what you have, because you just can't afford to invest all you have in him and yank him because it's not going well after a month, or really come down on him after a month because it's not going great. Because we've seen those flashes. We saw the flashes last year. I mean, he has it. He does have the ability to be successful. The problem is we're just not seeing it right now. And hopefully here over the next couple months, you can. I mean, look at Josh Minott in Boston right now. Like, why is he playing so well? It's because he's on a bad team with no expectations, and he's given the ability to fail. What happened when he was in Minnesota? He didn't have that. Like, he had to come into the lineup. He had to play well. And when he missed a defensive rotation, he got yanked, and he never saw the rotation again.
Although I will interject here that I believe tonight he got kind of yanked from the rotation because he missed a few defensive rotations, basically in the same way that he did Minnesota. So I will point that out.
It will happen. I think he scored 21 though. I mean, he had a pretty nice statistical night. So I mean, he's been playing pretty well with Boston. I mean, he's had an expanded role. There's not a lot of expectations there, and he has the ability to fail and figure out what he's doing. And like, he just didn't have that in Minnesota, and it didn't work out here, and he got yanked from the rotation, and he never saw it again. And so I just think you need to find the balance with Rob of giving him that time and space, allowing him to fail on a good team, which is almost an oxymoron, but that's what this part of the season is for. Because yes, in the spring you won't have that. Like it's going to be a push for the playoffs. But the Wolves have done it with Rudy Gobert when he started on the team, and they did it with Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo when they started, and they gave them the space and they gave them the time to be able to figure it out and not look good and make this team look like barely a playoff team or not even a play-in team at times. I think you have to do that with a player that you have invested that future draft capital in.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into our first topic of they need to play better so that they can play him more. If he is going to be not a net positive player or whatever, they need to have they need a better paper effort for him. Because while I agree they need to play him, if they're fighting tooth and nail to get out of the play-in, then they can't.
But play him over Bones Highland. I mean, he's earned enough
Yeah.
to be able to earn those minutes over Bones Highland. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is like that's where I give Finch props is like we've kind of ditched the Bones Highland thing and we're just like, all right, let's play Robin, let's be able to do this thing. And the other thing I would say about him too is he's at least competing on defense. He really is. I mean, he had a nice steal tonight. Like he's not giving a lot of space to the guy in front of him. Is he Tony Allen? No.
He's just so undersized.
He's so undersized. And yeah, no, like he's not Tony Allen, he's not Andre Roberson, but like he's at least trying out there on defense, which especially tonight is more than a lot of guys can say. I will say that.
Yeah, and while I agree with you, you can't just yank him out of the rotation, I do think part of me kind of feels like you also got to have a level of mental strength when things aren't going well. And like other guys Donte got pulled from the rotation on opening night. Like you also have to have a level of like, and maybe that's just hard to ask from a 20-year-old, but like a level of emotional consistency where when things are going well, you can focus on that. And when things aren't, you try to recover from it. So I agree with you that they can't, like they need to keep playing him at least to some degree, but also when it gets to a second half and they're in a dogfight and they just need to get a win or whatever, and he doesn't end up playing as much as he'd like that can't be. And it's not to say he's ever had like an issue or whatever, but it just it also needs to be coming from him as well as much as the team.
And you don't. I would say. And again, if you're in a crunch time, like I'm not saying play him or anything like that, but I do think it's like, hey, we're going to give you that second quarter shift. Like even if you play bad tonight, like you're probably still going to have it the next game. You know what I mean? Like you may not see the fourth quarter tonight, but you'll have that second quarter shift the following game. And yeah, I agree with you on the element of mental toughness. I think with Donte, like he's obviously a vet, so like he's learned that. I mean, who knows what would have happened if Anthony Edwards or Brian Saunders was still the coach? You know what I mean? Like that was clearly not that was clearly not going well, and that was not a system that fit what he was doing best. And Finch comes in, gets him downhill, and gets confidence in him. I mean, you just never know with these young players when they're 19 years old. And as long as I think he can have that confidence of, yeah, like I might not close games, I might not get that fourth quarter closing minute, I might not get that first, like that mid fourth quarter shift like I got tonight. Like the next game, I will get that second quarter shift, and I am going to make the most of it, and I'm going to learn from the film that I got on this game.
Absolutely, and I do think I have to keep reminding myself he's 20. You can't legally go out and buy a beer. Like, got to keep, like, there's still a lot of time. It just, and I did this with the Gobert trade. I'm just so focused on what they gave up, and it's a sunk cost at this point, and I should probably let it go. But it's just like if it would be nice to have, if they could redo the trade, they probably would, but maybe that's unfair too. But
you just never know. You just never know if he's going to have a 10-game stretch here in a month where he's averaging, 13 points and 4 assists. Like it's hard to say. I mean, he had a stretch similar to that last February. And there is, and again, I'm taking this from a glass half full perspective because I've done plenty of glass half empty stuff on Rob before, but there is palpable chemistry there with Rudy too. And that is something that you can take, and that can compound into games moving forward too. So I do think that there are things there, but promising him and giving him that leash to be able to figure it out is very, very important.
Yep. All right. I did want to take a little quick look at the schedule just because I think the schedule stuff always plays a larger role than we like to assume, because basically the schedule for the next month is just incredibly soft, and especially these next the next couple weeks here, they play their next 4 games are 2 against Utah, 2 against Sacramento. 2 of those the Friday night games are NBA Cup games for all the get your Seinfeld meme ready. I know you like to tweet that one out. What is this? It's the NBA Cup, Jerry. Get it's that one.
All time.
Get the, if you want to. Both of the Cup games are on the road, so when they go to Phoenix, whatever, Phoenix got a purple court going.
Oh gosh, probably gonna be purple. I will say though, this year it's like maybe a little bit more of a honeydew than it has been just the lime green in your face of previous years, but it's still not great.
I was planning to pack some Advil for Friday night. Get blasted by the green. I'll have to go check it out. But
hey, at least it's not red. Red is an absolute eyesore.
You're just like, they're trolling us at that point.
That's
with
awful.
the red. It's like, it's like pits of hell type vibes.
Bring back the blue, man. I need the vibes of Troy Brown scoring 15 points in the fourth quarter again. Bring back the blue court.
Yeah, but I was looking, so their next 9 games, they're going to be fairly sizable, barring relative health, I would say. They're going to be pretty sizable favorites at 8 of the next 9 games. They got 2 against Utah, 2 against Sacramento, the one Denver, they will not be sizable favorites. They might be small favorites, probably not. Second night of back-to-back, now they'll be a slight underdogs probably against. But then Dallas, who's not really played well, Washington, who's terrible, Phoenix, Sacramento. That's like a third of your next 9 games are against Sacramento. But that's a 9-game stretch where it's like probably should go 7-2. Maybe that's like 6-3 at the bare minimum, and even after that, you obviously play Oklahoma City, who is a wagon, but then you get Boston, who's not very good, San Antonio, who's solid, and then 2 against New Orleans. Like up until mid December. Up until like the NBA Cup, whatever, that little break, this is an opportunity to start building some wins. And if you can do that, then you can play Rob Dillingham at the expense of a loss. And I know I've seen a little bit of like already kind of like that. Basically, the Wolves have played. I would say, I want to say like the 4 bad teams they've won and the 4 good teams they've lost to, but they lost. I would say Portland is better than the husk of a Lakers team that they lost to. So it's not quite lined up, but. It's kind of weird. Everyone complains about them tanking or losing against bad teams, but then the minute they do the opposite and start cleaning up the bad teams and can't beat a good team, it feels like people complain about that. So it seems like the common denominator here is just the complaining, which is fun. Maybe that's on me. I just got to get off the internet. But I think it'd be good to just see them clean up against. I mean, if a lot of really good NBA seasons are built on the backs of just kicking the butt of bad teams. So I think that's kind of the goal here, is try to find some defensive consistency as you play some teams that aren't going to torch you.
Yeah, and I would counterpoint that and say, previous couple of years when they beat the good teams and haven't beaten the bad teams, they've made Western Conference Finals. And I think it's maybe battle tested them for the playoffs. I think against the good teams specifically, it's going to tell you a lot about the lineups that we talked about tonight with those non-Rudy minutes. I mean, for Utah specifically, like I'm not going to learn anything from those games unless they lose. Because especially with Walker Kessler getting announced
Walker Kessler is like he's out for the season. That's like the biggest. I feel like that anytime a team has a rim protector, that's always tough for Ant. You saw it tonight with like Mitchell Robinson. But like the biggest weapon, and Larry Markin is still really good. But like the biggest worry with Utah is Walker Kessler, and now he's out.
He's great. He's their best rebounder, so I'm not really going to learn anything of those non-Rudy minutes. Like Utah's probably going to play some pretty similar personnel to what the Wolves do in those non-Rudy minutes, like Kyle Filipowski and like undersized, like as Micah Potter. I think Micah Potter might still be on that team too. Like they're probably going to be running very similar big man groups to what they were doing last year, and that's very similar personnel to what the non-Rudy group is. So I'm not really going to learn much about that on Friday. Sacramento has the ability to be pretty interesting. Like, how does Sabonis? How do they handle
team,
Sabonis? They're not. And yes,
Westbrook,
I agree.
DeRozan, Levine, Sabonis is just
they're not
it's
good.
Just
but
gross.
DeRozan has played well against this team previously, and Sabonis is still a very skilled big. And again, like we talked about, like skilled bigs, like guys who can rebound, like those are guys that this team might be able to struggle against if they stagger minutes appropriately. And so those Sacramento games I will actually be able to learn a little bit from. Like, let's see what this team can do against a pretty good offense with a pretty good big, and guys that like to get downhill and get to the rim and be able to hunt mid-range shots. That'll tell me a little bit more. But these Utah games, I mean, these are crack a beer open games, and don't worry about it. That's just crack a beer and watch the show. I mean, Ryan, go back to the media room, maybe get a beer during the game, and
definitely
do
not doing that.
Press box.
No, we'll save that. We'll save that for the post game after the. But yeah, Friday against. I mean, it has disaster potential, I guess, is what I'll say. Sacramento. I just kind of be surprised if they play Sacramento 3 times in November. I'd be surprised if they won all 3. It just feels like that's the type of team that they I mean, okay, so they have a home back versus Sacramento versus Denver. That is absolutely a spot where last year they lose to Sacramento and then beat Denver. That's absolutely something that they would do. So if they ended up going going chalk and beating up on the bad teams, then I'd like to see a close game against Denver. Who's I watch them and I don't think they're very good defensively.
Well, they still don't have anybody who can guard Ant either. I mean, that's really that Denver game for me was like they actually played, I think, Denver pretty well given the circumstances, but Denver still doesn't have anybody that can guard Ant, and the Wolves still don't really have an answer.
Of the 4 losses, that Jokic. Denver loss was the least worrying to me. I was like, this is still a team that they can beat, man.
it very much so is, and so I'm not worried about that. We'll still definitely learn plenty about this team with that Denver game. And again, Sacramento, I think, is going to be an opponent that we're going to learn plenty about. But again, those Utah games, crack a beer games.
Yep, and the schedule will eventually turn around where they have some, where they start playing some good teams. But for now, hopefully they can start stacking wins. But for Andrew, I'm Ryan. Thank you everyone for listening. Go Wolves.